Survivor's ready. If anybody has a hidden immunity idol and you want to play it, now would be the time to do so.
The queen stays queen.
You said rustle feathers.
Did you do that?
Yeah.
I'm supposed to talk calamity. We have ripe bananas all the time.
Dude, my prize isn't even $1 million. My prize was that I fell in love in this game. Love at first sight. Her name is Candace.
You officially go down as the dumbest survivor ever.
Welcome to Not Game All Personal. Hey, we are a Survivor podcast here to talk about all things Survivor. More specifically, the finale of season 48. I'm Nathan. This is Tony. Tony, welcome back to the country.
Thank you so much. I was visiting where they filmed Survivor Thailand.
Oh, so Thailand?
Yeah. Yep, that's what it was.
If you believe that's where they filmed it, yes.
That's true. I could be lying. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. Oh, can you imagine that conspiracy? All Survivor's fake, just every single part of it. That I'm pretty sure. Like,
It's
can
all
look
been
on.
a stage in California.
Well, I haven't looked myself, but I've seen screenshots of like Google Maps, and you can actually see like the camp and some challenges if you go to like the islands in Fiji.
Yeah, there's like a Survivor island that just has like the 5 spots that they do challenges, and like it's very. They have a whole area there.
Well, and it is. What's the term in wrestling? The kayfabe, is that what it's called? Where
I don't know.
Where the act that wrestling is real, that like you stay in character and don't acknowledge that it's fake, whatever. Okay. So if you want to keep that up with Survivor, don't look at the picture, because you will also see, I'm pretty sure there's like a hotel that's like right there, and like other people live on these islands, like it's not just like Survivor. So it really breaks the illusion a bit, because you can see like, oh, Tribal Council is here, and like I don't know on the map, but like a couple miles away, like there's a resort, where just like tourists can go to. So it is like, it breaks it a little bit.
I like to think their camps are in a more remote spot, but like they can't just explore the whole island. They're limited to a certain area, and like anywhere they go, if they go in a group of 2, a camera's following them. The only way that they can go by themselves is they're like, I'm going to the bathroom. Please don't follow me. So it's if you really look at it, especially if you see the behind the scene pictures where there's like 3 people sitting at camp and then 9 people recording them from different angles, it changes things.
It really does. It's bizarre way to film a show, and yet they've done it for 48 seasons.
But hey, we're burying the lead. This is obviously spoiler heavy, but Nathan, congratulations to us for finally selecting the winner.
Well, okay, here's what I was going to say. I got to give you props, okay? Because based on the draft we did early in the season, all of your players made it to, who's the earliest you had gone? Shaheen?
Yeah, we did 4. I had 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yeah, so like you did really well. So like kudos to you, because you did
to us.
based on the rules we set, like your players averaged a higher placement than mine.
We did.
I, however, was able to pick the winner, which is something like neither of us were able to do for years, right? Years we've been trying to do this.
Together, we've
so
had
like
this goal, so we did it.
Right. That's what I'm saying. I'm like, I think we both win, like pretty equally.
I think we both. I'm willing to take but we
like.
Both
I mean,
win, yeah.
Like, was your highest person like the 1 vote 3rd place finisher? Yeah, but like, I don't want to take that away from you. I think you did just as well as I did for predicting the winner. So like, I think we did it, didn't we?
Yeah, when you really like look at like depth in the game, like I picked 3, 4, 5, 6. You picked first. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then where were everyone else that you picked?
They were very low.
We don't need to get into
I mean,
that.
2 of them were like pre-merge. Actually, all the other 3 were all pre-merge. So like there's that. But I think like it does offer the interesting like question is like, who plays the best game? The people that make it the farthest, or the person that wins? Like
true.
Like I think that's a fair question. Like, does the 3rd place or the 1st place player play the better game? And so I think like it does balance out, where again, kudos to you, but like really kudos, and I'm not just saying this because it's me. Like
to us.
if you
kudos
would
to
have picked the
us.
winner, I think that would have been just as impressive. Like, so I hate that I have to be the one to like toot my own horn here, but like, it really was a job well done that I was able to see that coming.
Yeah, we did an awesome job.
In
And,
all
like,
seriousness,
you're
though.
just- and also, like, if you really think about it, we're just lucky that Camilla didn't make. You're lucky that Camilla didn't make it
Uh-huh.
because apparently everyone votes for her according to Star, and no one really pushed back on that. But yeah, that's a thing.
I have so many thoughts, Tony, because and we have like weeks to catch up on, but to be honest, I don't even really have much from those weeks. Obviously, I think the Shaheen vote comes into play very heavily with this final tribal council, so we will discuss
Absolutely.
that. The Mary vote, nothing to say other than props to David for being a real man and standing up for her. I don't know.
So
Quite
I
literally.
despised David. Just like this whole like mean mugging them constantly. During Final Tribal, him finally being like, I just did like that made it like a teensy bit better, but it's just like, why do you gotta be a hardo like that, dude? Like no one thinks it's cool. It's not even that funny. I don't know. I can't with David.
I honestly, maybe I have the opposite take. I wish he would have kept it. I was hoping this would have actually led to bitterness, and I think the fact that it didn't made it worse to me. I'm like, oh,
That's
so
fair.
you're just like, because if it was sincere, like if he was sincerely upset with them and would have carried that on, I think I would have had more respect for him. But the fact that it was just for show and it was just to be like, oh, people want me to be bitter, so I'm gonna pretend to be like, I didn't like that. I think that was my thought.
I wonder if that for the first couple times it was serious. Why is he why is he slumped like that when he stood up for Mary?
Like
He's like standing weird. Like
think
he's
it's-
kind of like got
it's
his
the
shoulders
muscles.
forward and he's like very
Well, okay.
like
let me explain to
tall a
you.
little bit. I don't
Well,
know.
when you have muscles, okay, sometimes
All right.
you have to stand
Rude.
a,
That's pretty
a different
insulting.
way. No. I'm not saying you don't. I'm just
Everybody
saying like
has
sometimes.
muscles.
No.
Nathan.
You're not hearing me. Okay. Sometimes like when you have muscles, right? I don't know. Your body just stands differently. That's all. That is no dig on you. What's up?
It felt like a shot on me.
I feel like we have weeks to catching up to do. This is not off to a good start. Okay, let's get on track here.
That's all I need to say for that episode. Yeah, I'm good.
Let's start with obviously congratulations to Kyle.
hmm
Jokingly aside, I think the winning resume felt clear for a long time, and I think it was more of a question of is this a fake out or not? And I think
Yeah.
we both saw it coming. You know, we've been talking about it for episodes like, can it be this obvious? Even though some people were still saying Joe for a while, you know? Where do you think Kyle's game stands up compared to other winners? Maybe with a new
Ooh.
era overall, like looking at this season as a whole, obviously we had our issues, you know, not the most exciting at all times, but Kyle's game isolated. One, do you think this is the correct winner for the season? And two, do you think this is a strong winning game?
I hate the idea of the correct winner for this season because they talk about who's going to represent this season. And to me, when I think of this season, I'm probably going to think of Joe or Eva first. I think they're more representative of what this season was to me. I think because they were front and center and their relationship and just how cool that was and like how groundbreaking, maybe not groundbreaking, but just what it was. I think that's like very representative. Going into that final three, first of all, very stacked final three. Like it's one of the better final threes we've seen in a long time. And I thought comfortably Kyle was the winner.
Mm-hmm.
I felt very good about him going into it. My concern was, will he be able to convince the jury of those behind the scene moves that he made throughout the season? Because you never know. Sometimes they aren't able, and it almost felt like he wasn't going to communicate it super well. Anyways, that was a lot of preface. I think it's definitely one of the better winning games, I think. of this new era specifically. He didn't have to rely on immunity challenge wins at any point. The only time he won one, I think, was the one that just gave him the decision of who to take. Obviously, taking Joe wasn't a bad decision. It felt like it could have been, but it didn't end up being. And yeah, it felt like him and Camilla dictated the whole game, and he got rid of Camilla. Yes, he put somebody else in to go against her, but I feel like putting out the hit on somebody is the same as isn't quite as much as executing it, but there's value to being like, this person needs to go, and so even though you're my closest ally, I'm gonna take the shot at you. So I haven't thought about stacking it up against specific people.
Sure.
I think D probably has the best game of the new era, but I think he's in that conversation with, like, I think Rachel maybe would be another one that I would put up there. Yeah, I think an incredible game, very behind the scenes. Yeah, those are my thoughts.
Mhm.
Where do you think it stands? Did I answer
Just
both questions?
yes, you did. Just to clarify
Cool.
real quick, and I had to double check this because I thought I was. He did win another individual, the very
Oh, did he?
first one, during the mergatory.
Okay.
So pre-merge technically, but when they all voted together, he was this was the very first one. Yeah, I actually think he has one of the stronger wins, and I wonder because I think like D's an interesting example. I almost wonder if D's game might be valued higher by some people because that season, I think, was better, but also had more obstacles for her. I think
Mhm.
Kyle played a nearly flawless game because I think, and why I say that is because like when you look at his game, there was almost no mistakes. Like there was
Mhm.
practically never a time. Like was his name written down at all? Actually, wait, I want to actually look at that. It might have not been. Now that I think, oh, it was.
Like if he got voted for?
One
Yeah,
time, Mitch wrote it down.
he also they played an
Uh,
idol for him, but it was written down in the Thomas vote.
that's right. Okay, so a couple
I
times.
think Mitch intentionally did that. Just side note, I think Mitch intentionally did that as like, I'm taking away your perfect game.
Yeah, that's probably true actually, which is I kind of like that respect.
Do negated votes count in perfect games?
I would
wonder.
say no, right? Because the vote doesn't count.
Yeah.
Like it's not a
Yeah.
vote. So if you were
I
to
genuinely
ask
think
me,
that's what, because as soon as that vote came up, I was like, oh, he's just saying frick you. That's all that is.
yeah. But all that said, like Kyle never had any obstacles, right? Like, and I
Mhm.
think that's another like reason why I keep comparing this to like a Big Brother season where it's just boring, but the person or people, if you will, on top are good, and that's why it's
Mhm.
boring. You know, like he was so good that like D, there was a couple times where like things got a little dicey. Like not really. Like I mean, I think we all knew she was gonna win, but like she actually had to pull off a couple things. Kyle like never really had to. So like I think that's gonna be an interesting conversation. Like if we do want to compare winners of like what is the more difficult thing to do or what makes you a better winner, if there is an answer to that. Is it like having obstacles and overcoming them, or is it having such a strong game that those obstacles never appear to begin with, you know? And I think that's Kyle's situation where it's like, you know, but I think the interesting thing is that could apply to multiple people. Like obviously Joe and Eva also never really had obstacles, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that's the tricky thing is like there's several players that could probably qualify to. In fact, like the top four, Camilla too. You know what I mean? Well, actually, I don't know. I guess Camilla was in hot water when David was throwing her name out, and Kyle kind of saved her. But I don't know. So I think like in my mind, Kyle has like one of the strongest games in the new era, but I think it's only due to him really eliminating even the future possibility of being in danger.
Yeah. And like it should be mentioned that Camilla was a big part of that too, and I think their duo, the secret duo, I think it shows is so valuable. I think that's a big similarity to his and D's game is they had these secret bonds that were closer than everybody else realized. And I think they both also had clear specific moves that they were able to point to and verify. Dee was able to
Mhm.
be like, "Hey, I told Julie to play this, and I didn't tell anybody else, and I still voted with you guys." Like there was that whole thing, and he was able to be like, "Hey, I lied to you and made you go after Shaheen, the person who I knew would be able to figure me out." And I think he
Yeah.
benefited too from Joe and Eva were so trusting, and because of his relationship with, because Eva said it a million times, she wasn't sure if she would be able to tell if somebody was lying to her. And so it really came on Joe to determine whether or not he trusted people or not. Kyle was able to really reach at Joe's heart, and I think it was genuine, but
Mhm.
after they really deeply connected, Kyle was able to just puppet them the whole way. Would he be able to do that on another season? I think that's the biggest question. Like, was this just the perfect cast for him to do what he needed to do? It's very
Yeah.
possible.
Yeah. I think that is super valid. Because I think
But
the thing is
that
like
doesn't diminish it at all. Luck
yeah,
matters.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
he was
No, I
lucky
completely
they had this
agree.
cast. That happens.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Because I think like the jury wasn't upset that Kyle, lied and betrayed. Like, and I think Joe and Eva were trying to play this game where it's like we're not gonna do that. Like you don't have to play Survivor that way. And Kyle's like, well, I'm gonna, like I'm gonna I'm gonna lie, I'm gonna betray, I'm gonna do these things, and like the jury didn't hate that. And I think like Mitch said it in his confessional pre-tribal council when the jurors kind of give their case for each person,
Hmm.
and he was like, I just want Kyle to own it. You know what I mean? Like I want him to admit
Yeah.
like that he did this, and I think that was part of it. And I think it's also like, and I've said this before, but it's like the backstabbing isn't always the issue. It's more so like how you do it, and are you going to do it like in a way that leaves that person respecting you or being bitter towards you? And I think like even with Joe and Eva, like those are two players like I don't know, having a player with autism and just outwardly like having essentially like a medical diagnosis for why you can't read a lie, that is
Hmm.
very easy to take advantage of.
Yeah.
But Kyle did lie to her, but I don't feel like it was in a way that like did take it. You know what I mean? I think like some people would look at that and be like, okay, well, I have to play honest with her because that wouldn't be right to
Hmm.
do it. But like, I don't think he did I don't think he crossed any lines. I think he was very like sincere about the way he went about it. And I think same thing with Joe, like Joe is not autistic, but like very trusting in a different way. And Kyle both utilized that like on a personal level and found ways that his game could work around it. So I don't know, like
Hmm.
there was really no one that was gonna be bitter towards him. And I don't
The
know, I
people that
kind
might have
of
been, yeah, he kept around. Like Joe might have been bitter if
sure,
he turned on him. Eva might have been bitter if he turned on him. Those aren't the people he turned on. He turned on
yeah,
Shaheen, somebody who respects game above all. Turned on Mitch, who also reluctantly respects game. Camilla, who was like, Kyle, I don't think it's best for us to go there together. We got to figure something out here.
mm-hmm,
Like, yeah, Mary and Star, I don't know if they were like, but then even like David and Chrissy were just respected the gameplay.
yeah,
It was interesting to me because Kyle almost felt reluctant to bring up the lies that he told, though. Like, it felt like
yeah,
Camilla had to pull it out of him.
mm-hmm,
But then once he did talk about it, I think it was very interesting how he framed it, because he was very clear to be like, it was the truth that Shaheen was talking about this. Was he trying to bait me or not? I don't know, but he was saying these things. I added in with my secret relationship the lie about the idol, but that was like, it felt like he framed it in such a way that it was like, yeah, I convinced you to do it, but he did say those things. So like,
mm-hmm,
I made sure you thought he was a threat and got rid of him, but the base of it wasn't a lie. And so just the way he framed it, I think was perfect, and it clearly impressed the jury when that finally came out.
yeah.
They asked about a move that he made, and he didn't say that, and I was like, that's. Or they asked a question where he could have mentioned it. I was like, oh, dude, that's your moment. What are you doing?
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I almost wish he would have went harder on it, and even the other stuff. I don't recall him really talking at all about David being voted out, and to me that was also like a big, hey, you were on to me and Camilla, like you called it, so I needed to get you out. Like to me that's a
Mhm.
great move, He didn't talk at all about Thomas At least I don't recall, but that was like a huge.
David, you mean? Oh no, Thomas. Yeah, you're right. They did mention Thomas.
They did? Okay. Maybe I don't
Yeah.
remember. Well, if they did, I wanted them to go
It was
harder.
briefly, but they did.
Because, like, to me, like, those were, like, two huge moves that defined how easy Kyle had it the rest of the game,
hmm
And, yeah, so I don't know. But, like, clearly he didn't need to go harder on it. And, I mean, maybe he did, and it was just edited down.
That's
'cause,
the
like,
thing,
We
like-
do see much more.
I imagine they more thoroughly like talk about some of that stuff, but the narrative of Final Tribal, they don't need to show all of it. Just show the most recent and the most meaningful one, and that was probably it.
Yeah, no, I think you're right there. Yeah, the thing I have a question with, and this kind of goes up, Eva she mentioned several times that, like, me and Joe are the strongest duo this season, right? And then Kyle had the great line of, like, I don't think you were the strongest duo. I think you were the most public duo, And I thought that was great. And Chrissy
Yeah.
liked that. She's like, yes. She got a good point there. My question is, and I don't think this is what he meant, but does having a secret duo automatically make it stronger? Like, I'm sure he would have elaborated a little more on what that meant, but that was my only thing. I was like, does, like, having a secret automatically make whatever better? Fill in the blank, right? Because I feel like every time the jury reacted strongly, it was because of a reveal, And, like, maybe the reveal isn't that good,
Yeah.
Like, but the fact that it's a secret, it makes them, like, think it's better. So I'm just wondering, like, is that going to be a thing moving forward? Like, are we as viewers and our future jury members going to overvalue certain moves, certain relationships, only because they're a secret?
Reveals, you're right, are super valuable, and I think that's fair. And I think that it like when it matters, that's a very valuable thing, and I think that's how the jury views it. I don't know if that's why Kyle felt that what I feel like he meant, and if I were to say that Camilla and Kyle were a stronger duo, I would not mean like their bond. I think Eva and Joe, the bond that they have and the bond that they shared when he helped her through those challenging moments is so much more powerful, I think, than what Kyle and Camilla had. But Kyle and Camilla were a stronger duo in that they were dictating the game from the entire merge. They were the ones that were making the decisions. They were the ones that were convincing Joe and Eva and Shaheen to go certain directions, putting in little lies, the smallest thing, just to get it to shift their perspective on someone to be like, oh, you're right, they do need to go home. And so I would say they were stronger in that way, where they were stronger as a duo in the game. Excuse me.
Yeah. No, and I think I do agree with that. I think it's just a combination with that, along with, like, several other reveals. I think, like, both Kyle and Eva had occupation and education reveals that, we've seen before. Like, that seems to be very common on Survivor, especially for the lawyer attorney route.
Yeah.
And then Eva also had the reveal of, like, the advantage that she never had to use, which I've already gone on many rants on this podcast about how I don't really care that much about it if you get to the end and your big move is that you didn't use it. Like, I don't know. So I think, like, that's kind of what's feeding into my, like, just because you have a reveal doesn't inherently make that a resume builder.
Yeah. I agree with that. I think the way that Eva presented hers was a little bit different, though, because hers wasn't just an idol; it was a knowledge without
safety
without power. And so she framed it in that, like, I had this ability. I could have left and been safe at any time, but I knew my vote and my responsibility to my team was more valuable than any, like, nerves or any, and just the way she framed it in that way, where it's like my value as a vote was more important than, like, my safety. I think it was super powerful. When you put it in the context of nobody really voted for her, less powerful. You could definitely push back on that.
Right.
But framing it in, like, no, I wasn't going to abandon my team like that, I think it was something.
Yeah. I did find the one when they both revealed their professions to Joe. Thought that was very funny. He's like, "I'm just a fireman. What are you talking about?" But then also, I I felt it was a little awkward when Kyle goes first on the yeah, I was incarcerated. Turned my
It
life
did feel
around.
different.
Attorney, and then Eva's just like, "Oh well, wait till this
You think
one.
that's crazy?
I am getting my PhD." Like it just, I was like, oh, I don't know about that timing. That feels like you could
Yeah,
have waited on that one. You,
that
you're
was
not,
tough.
you're not one upping him here.
Hmm.
But yeah, whatever. How do you feel about the final results of Eva getting more votes than Joe? Obviously, like it doesn't really matter all that much. Um, this isn't like a ranked voting, so this isn't like a
Yeah.
consensus. But just in the terms of like for Survivor history books, Eva is the
Hmm.
runner up. Do you like that, or would you like to see Joe get more votes than her in this finale?
Yeah, there's a part of me that would have liked to see Joe with more votes because I think Eva never felt like she was a target. Like right at the merge, yes, the charity was bringing her up. People wanted to go for her, but honestly, there's a part of me that felt like she felt like a Xander, where like people just weren't worried about her. She wasn't really making any of the decisions. She had her idol and she had her safety without power and she had all the advantages that she had, but people just seem to not be worried about her. Whereas Joe, multiple times, I think people wanted to go for Joe, but he kept winning immunities. And so to me, he was always in more danger. And for some reason, she just wasn't. I don't know if she wasn't seen as a threat. I don't know if people were scared to vote her out because they were scared of how it would have been perceived. But they just didn't seem to be worried about her that much, which is honestly very interesting to me.
Mm-hmm.
Why she just didn't seem like much of a threat to everybody. Um, but I think she did have a good final tribal. I think she had some good answers to questions, framed things very well, and so I think that earned her the 2 votes more so than Joe. Um, yeah, I think Joe had a kind of a lackluster final tribal, which kind of makes sense. He doesn't know the game super well.
Yeah, honestly, this whole episode, like going into it, I really thought he had a chance of winning,
Mm-hmm.
but it was like almost immediately, like once the episode started, I was like, oh, there's practically 0% chance. Just like
Mm-hmm.
the way that the edit was. But also just like he just didn't like feel super confident. And again, his lack of how these things go probably played into the majority of that.
Mm-hmm.
Because it even like the way that final travel started, where I think it was Chrissy was like, "You guys are gonna have to like separate your games here. Like, tell me something.
Mm-hmm.
Like, are you just a package? Like, are we just splitting our votes between you two? Like, what's going on?" And I don't know. It's like I'm not saying Eva had a better answer, but like Joe was just almost like felt defeated from the start in that final tribal. Of
Yeah.
it felt like very obvious. Oh, this is between Kyle and Eva.
Yeah, and that's tough because I think how he heard the question was like, you guys have to attack and tear each other down. And I don't know if that's, I think that might have been partially what Chrissy meant, but I don't think that was entirely what she meant. And his response of like, nah, I'm going to defend my game and tell you why my game was good, but I'm not going to tear hers down. I think it's a fair response, but then you didn't really do that. And so, like, and so it's just, he didn't get many questions from there. And the questions he did get just didn't do much. I think there's a way to frame his game in a very valuable way and be like, hey, I was a big threat out here. People wanted to get me out, but I was super well insulated by people who wanted to take me further. Kyle should have taken me out, but we had this deep bond that he didn't want to. Like, you could have framed things like that. Like, yeah, Kyle was making a lot of decisions, sure, and we were working together on those. I don't know. I think there was a way, there was a path for him, but I just don't think he was built for it.
Yeah, no, I really don't either. And I think it's a bummer because like I really liked him early on. And it's not like I disliked him, but I think as the season goes on, I think him and Eva just like became the face of like why this season was kind of boring. And
Mhm.
I just think that's like a bummer because I do think he played a good game. Like I really do. Like I
Mhm.
think it is less common in this new era that like a challenge beast can make it to the end. And
Mhm.
make it to the end not only because of winning immunity challenges, which like he did, and he was close to setting a record or tying the record, I suppose. But like he also did it on he was safe on weeks he didn't win immunity because of like his alliance. So it was like
Mhm.
it was a good game. Again, boring game that led to kind of a dull season, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Like it is a bummer that like he kind of ended on this flat note where it's like I'm so curious how we're gonna look back on his game, um, as just being like this one vote finalist that kind of had a boring season.
Yeah. I was talking to coworker Nick earlier today. We were talking about the season, and he mentioned Joe is now being rumored for season 50. And I my first response was like, what more can he add to his game that would make me want to see him again? Like he'll come back and he'll be honorable Joe, and
Be on the heroes
he'll
tribe.
do super well in challenges. I don't see him conform. I don't see him, first of all, being able to frame things better in Final Tribal. I also just don't see him coming in and like changing his gameplay at all. Like I see with a different jury, Joe potentially wins, sure. But there's also just the chance that he just plays the exact same game and is a third place finalist again because he didn't change anything.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. It's actually very interesting to like think about because I think like when you reach Final Tribal, that really does show us a much larger picture of the game you play compared to people. I think like a lot of the people that we want to see back are the ones that we feel got robbed at like, Final Four or Final Five.
Hmm.
But like when you see someone
Hmm.
in Final Tribal, it really does expose them of whether or not, because like you're right, like at very best, he does the same thing by getting to the end. And does he switch up like,
It makes me think of Amanda.
sure, yeah, that's a good comparison.
Amanda played back to back, played great both times. Should have
Mhm.
had a shot both times, but once she got there, she didn't learn. She didn't learn how to handle final tribal in a
Right.
good way.
Mhm.
And I think Parv deserved it. I think Todd deserved it, but she had a better argument than I think she gave both times.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so it is just interesting because I'm like I don't know how many like it'd be I'd want to see well actually I say that but there's a very clear 0 vote finalist that I'd desperately beg to be back on that she probably
Romeo?
isn't. No, not Romeo.
Dang it! I thought I
Uh,
had it.
Carolyn, in case listeners
Oh
aren't
yeah.
connecting the dots, which that
Um,
was bizarre.
my friend Nick Natalie started watching season 44, and they
Not
didn't like
coworker Nick,
Carolyn in the first
other Nick.
episode, and I'm mad about it.
Well, hey,
And
if you
I said it
remember,
before I left. I was like, all my homies love Carolyn, and it's gonna break my heart if you guys don't.
okay, but in all fairness,
It took a
episode
few for
1.
us.
Do you remember coworker Nick, not other Nick, coworker Nick texted
Mhm.
us before we watched that. He watched the episode before us, and he's just like,
Mhm.
FYI, I hate Carolyn. I'll never forget that because that was like going into the premiere of a new season. I knew nothing other than coworker Nick doesn't like Carolyn. So I don't
And
think
then the one
that's not a
still-
hot take to dislike Carolyn after episode 1.
I still remember the moment. It was episode 2 or 3, and we were talking about her, and we were both just like in. I feel like I discovered it while we were recording. I don't know if you were already there, but it was like, do I like Carolyn? Like, is this real?
I
Do
think
actually
it was
enjoy her?
when she put the idol back in the birdcage and then had this whole
Mhm.
like song and dance where she was like falling on the
She
floor
laid
like
down on the ground.
oh my
and everybody
goodness,
just waited
who?
patiently.
She was like throwing leaves on herself. And
Carson's just patiently waiting. For her to be
Yeah.
done.
no, I remember that scene specifically being like, okay, I'm in. I
Yep.
like this, and then I was in. Yeah, I don't know. Like, do people not like her still? I don't know. I haven't checked in with coworker Nick since to see if like I'm
I'll
curious
talk
if
to him tomorrow.
if you're listening, coworker Nick, let me know. I can also text you, but anyways, this season.
Back to this season. So I have a question, and I don't know if it deserves dissecting now, but as we're talking about returning players,
Great.
it's a kind of a big question.
Well, clearly
How
Mitch,
often do you think?
right?
How often?
Because Jeff
Yeah.
said Mitch is going to be America's favorite, right? Is that what?
Yeah, that's true. How often do you think people actually change their game in a tangible way when they return? I think more often than not they play the exact same game. I think there's certain lessons that they might learn, but I think almost always they try to play the same game.
Yeah.
And you see how possible that is and how impossible it is sometimes.
That is a very interesting question. And I would say, like, just immediately, the examples that are coming to mind, I think it both like works, but then also like doesn't work in other. I don't know, because I'm like thinking of I'm thinking of Stephen Fishback, right? When he came back for second
Yep.
chances,
Yep.
his biggest fault was being so scared of the Golden Boy, right?
Yeah.
He tried
Yep.
so hard to change that, and it didn't work for him. I think of Tony coming back for Game Changers, where he loses the element of surprise. He's like, I just got to be out and open, be myself. Nope. He has to revert
not
back
like
to his old ways of to win Winners at War. So I don't know. I think like there's certain players like Sarah or Lucina, sorry. Like she
Yeah.
probably plays a different game in Game Changers. You know, like she learned a lesson and she wins.
Mhm. Yeah.
Maybe Jeremy too. I don't know. Like
I wonder. Sometimes I wonder if it's did they learn a lesson or they just got dealt a better hand.
That could be too. Yeah.
Yeah, because there's the specific scenarios that you mentioned where like Fishback learned a very specific lesson and tried to operate and not let that downfall happen again. But some of them, it's like Sarah. I think she would have played that game. I don't know. I don't see something specific in her. I guess she was like very intentional to like get to know people. I think that was a huge thing that she won. Maybe for Winners at War, she tried to implement that. So I guess you do see them try to learn something specific. Tyson is always my favorite example of he was scared to go to Rocks, and that's why he got voted out in Heroes versus Villains, and then in Blood versus Water, he's like, I'm going to Rocks. I'm putting my nuts on the table. I'm trying to win this game. And so I guess a lot of them do, but yeah, I think more often than not, they revert back to their same gameplay. Like Boston Rob always plays the same, and it just depends if the people around him are going to let him get away with it or not. And that transcends shows too. That he does that everywhere he goes.
Yeah, and that's an interesting
some-
example too, because I feel like sometimes you just can't play any different because if
Yeah.
it's a returning season, people know how you play. You know, so you're not going to
It's the
be someone
expectation.
like Malcolm or Joe and just show up and then not win challenges. You know, like you can't do that. You're still a threat, so might as well win them.
Then you're just Colby.
True.
That was rude. He didn't deserve that stray. That was uncalled for. I want to take that back. Cochran's one where I don't know that Cochran learned anything necessarily since the first one. I think he just got dealt a really crappy hand the first time around with Ozzy and all of the people on his tribe. When he came back as a favorite, everybody loved him because he's a fun person to be around, and he wasn't ostracized by his tribe right away.
Yeah. I like that question a lot. That's a good question. Okay, put that
I
in
think
your
it'd be
good
interesting
question
to ask
stack.
returners, like just get an answer from every returner. Do you feel like you changed your game between seasons? If so, how? Because some of it we might not even see, because like Sarah made it more intentional to like get to know people. We don't actually get to see that, but she tried. Cass tried to do that. Remember when Cass made that little necklace or something, I think for Sarah? She's like, it's your birthday, or Candace maybe? I don't know, whatever it might have been.
Well, Sarah wasn't on Second Chances with Cass, so I don't know.
They were on Game Changers together though, weren't they?
Not Cass.
Cass was on Game Changers?
No.
My bad. My
I'm
bad. Hey,
fairly confident.
I'm gonna check.
You go ahead and check.
But sorry, that was a whole
No,
thing.
that's a great question. Because I think in like 6 days now we're gonna get the cast for 50, which is insane.
I thought it was supposed to be last night, so I was excited for it.
I did too. I'm gonna be honest. I actually did too. And then after the episode was over, I was like, "Wait, did I miss something?" And I looked. I was like, "Oh, next Wednesday." Whoops. So I was very excited. So 49, you have a week for us to watch that promo a couple times, and then.
But it's a promo that doesn't show anything because they just recorded it 3 days before.
I feel bad for 49. Similar to 39, just do not care at all. I do kind of want. I feel like there's 2 more things I want to hit on. I'll just say them now so we can make sure to remember. I want to talk a little bit more about Camilla, just a tad. And also
Absolutely.
the Shaheen vote, because I do think that felt like a big one.
Yeah.
So let's start there. This move was fascinating to me because it felt like it wasn't so much about Shaheen, and it was more so about the resume builder. I think Shaheen was a part of it. Obviously, they chose him, but the logic behind it was less of like, he's this massive threat, he's this or that. It's more of like, I want something to, again, that big reveal at Final Tribal that Joe and Eva don't have control over.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that assessment? And like, I find that such an interesting way that this game is being played now, where you can have that much control, where it's like, I don't care who goes home as long as I'm one-upping and blindsiding these other people and they don't know about it.
Yeah, I don't think I necessarily read it that way when it happened. And I watched the episode wildly jet lagged, so that might have been part of it too. But I definitely see like that being the intent behind it. I think Shaheen for a while was considered a threat. And I think razzle dazzling him is guaranteeing a jury vote because he's got a pretty big ego. Like, he got voted out and said, "I'm the best player." Like, that was smart. And it's like, dude, take it easy. Like,
He was saying
he's
that
not
before he
great.
was voted out too.
Yeah, I know, it was crazy. But yeah, I don't know that I necessarily got that read, but it wouldn't surprise me if that was the thought process behind it. And I also wonder if it was just like, if it's that trio of Joe, Eva, and Shaheen, then neither Kyle or Camilla are gonna make it. And so I think it was partially just to weaken that group as a whole. Okay, we're gonna isolate those 2, and we can manage those 2 better than we can manage a 3.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think the way they pulled it off too, I mean, clearly impressive because it is such a risky lie and maybe slightly like over the top unnecessary, but like, thank God it worked. Thank God Joe just didn't directly ask Shaheen about the idol or whatever, you know.
And Shaheen didn't pick up that clearly Joe was told something and investigate on his own. He just was like, man, Joe's acted weird.
Yeah, no, I
Kinda
mean,
moved on.
just like the slightest conversation could expose the whole thing. So
Yeah.
I don't know, like clearly that was one of, if not the game-winning move for Kyle. But at the time, I felt like this is incredibly irresponsible. Like, there is no reason to
yeah.
do this. This is stupid, you know. Like, you are just being flashy for the sake of being flashy. But now that thought process is foolish because it worked. And I think like part of why it works so well, being Shaheen specifically, is because of that ego, you know, because like whatever their intention was, now they can tell him like, you were a threat, so we voted you out. And Shaheen's like, I like that, you know, I like the sound of that. Because like there was even a moment at the Final Tribal where Kyle's like, yeah, Joe was like the muscle, Shaheen was the brain, you know, so like just stroking that ego. And clearly it worked on Shaheen because he was very impressed. And I'm sure, again, Camilla probably helped a lot with that jury vote in Ponderosa.
Oh, she was for sure talking up their game, and felt like she like saved some of those reveals for Final Tribal too, which I think was like clutch of her. Yeah, you got to know how to play each person, and they definitely knew how to play Shaheen.
Yeah, the only thing with Camilla really is, I don't know. I feel like I'm still left a little underwhelmed maybe not so much about her game, but I think the way that she was perceived or like her edit on this whole season.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think like in hindsight, I think she played a really good game. She is
Yeah.
clearly a good player, maybe great player. But at the end of the day, I think like looking at the season as a whole, it does feel like her edit was reduced to almost just being Kyle's secret partner. Like there wasn't a lot that stood out on her own. Whereas, and it makes sense because he won the game, but like Kyle had all these individual confessionals, he had
Mhm.
this like weighing between the options, this way, that way, where Camilla,
Mhm.
a lot of her moves just had to be like, okay, Kyle says we're doing this, So I think there's part of me that like wants to see what was left out in her game.
Yeah.
If she would have either made Final Tribal or won the game, I'm sure we would have seen, a bigger picture to that.
Mhm.
So I don't know. I think like if any of these players were to come back, she would be one of the top of my lists.
Yeah. I think it's
Um,
fair.
Other than like, I don't know, someone like Thomas or maybe even like Say for the sake of like entertainment, but
Yeah.
I don't know. Like Camilla's like, to me, I'm like, there feels like so much more potential that unfortunately got reduced to a very specific picture because of how she went out.
Yeah. I definitely agree. I think she and I think they were a duo that worked together. I ultimately believe that. But when you think of the Shaheen vote, it was Kyle that pitched that whole plan. Like it felt like the big moments, the big decisions, he felt like he was the driving force of those. But I genuinely think that she was a huge part of that too, and I think she was working those relationships with like Mary, and I think her and Eva had a really good relationship. It felt like I think she was like working really well with the people on the bottom and keeping them on board, whereas Kyle was focused on the relationship with Joe and Eva, and Shaheen more so. And so like they had different roles, but they definitely highlighted Kyle more than they did her. Um, and if nobody pushed back on Star saying that she was clearly going to win. I kind of wish everybody had raised their hands if they would have voted for Camilla, because
Yeah.
I just don't believe anything. Jeff said something about Star where she was like had a pulse on the game. I was like, buddy, what are you watching? She did not. Like, or you just didn't show us that she did, because
Jeff just doesn't know anything about Survivor anymore. That's my like biggest
Yeah.
takeaway. Because pre this season, he was claiming this was like one the bet. Like, oh, this season's the. Which I know he has to say that, but
Mhm.
like, my goodness, between that,
it made
and
him cry.
again, Mitch being him saying like, Mitch, you're gonna be such a fan favorite or whatever he said about. I was like, what?
There were so
What?
many storylines. He loves a storyline. There's Eva has autism, Mitch's stutter, Joe is like this honorable person.
Which I gotta
David
say,
is this
like,
stunt man that's trying
I
to
don't
do
want
this.
to. I don't want to take
Kyle's been
anything.
to jail once or twice.
I don't want to take anything away from Eva. There is no way she's the first person on Survivor with autism, right?
No,
Like
she's the first person
openly,
openly who
yes.
is on this, like knows she's on the
most
spectrum.
most of these winners are like they're autistic. I'm sorry, they are. I could name 10 off the bat right now that they would
It's not
probably
safe.
even
We'll do
admit
that
it.
off air. But-
You don't want to do a draft of the top 10. Okay.
I feel like you shouldn't diagnose people. No, but that's
Fine.
fair. That's very fair. Yeah,
What
yeah,
were you
but I
saying?
think
I don't
that's
know.
what he loves is those storylines and people like there was so much emphasis in that last episode of Camilla's parents thinking that she would be the first voted out, and it's like she mentioned that in the confessional. Like that doesn't have to be her story. The fact that she was never voted out just because her parents thought she'd be voted out, like that feels like it was that felt like it was forcing a storyline for her
Yeah.
more so than they needed to.
Sorry, one more Jeff thing related to autism. I did like when
Good.
he was talking to Eva at the reunion, and he said something like, so do you think your experience here will, like, you think you'll be able to take that back and it'll help you in the real world? I'm like, oh, Jeff, you got to be careful here. Like, not everything on Survivor is just like a cure for,
Yeah.
like, just, like, it's okay
Like,
if,
yeah, I
like,
think my autism's cured.
Like, do you think we helped you? Like, are you gonna be better now? Like socially? Like we could like.
How did we make your life better? Like that, like how did the survivor journey change your life? It's like, Jeff, it didn't.
Dude,
I had
he
fun.
loves it. He loves being the reason that people's lives are better. Like that's just what it is.
Yeah, that's true. So I saw this after Shaheen was voted out, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. And then I'm gonna sneak away to use the little boys' room quick. While you talk about your response to this that I'm throwing in your face right now.
Oh,
Shaheen
great.
tweeted, "Oh, I mean, maybe I should find the tweet just to really well. He didn't tweet it actually. It was on X, the everything app. It's all happening on X.
He X'd it.
Um,
Is that how you say it? Or is it
he
just a
he
post?
X'd it.
Is it just
I think it's just a
generic?
post.
It's so
Let's make you
boring.
sign in and everything. That's so annoying. I should have been more prepared for this. I have
Yeah,
to pee
this
so
is
bad.
tragic. We could also just end
But
the
I
podcast if you'd like. I don't...
no, this is important because it's a conversation we've had a million times, but the way that he framed it. Was
Oh
very
yeah,
interesting.
yeah. I know what you're referring to. We're.
Is it
Are
better
you-
to be a ninth place, go out at ninth place, but actually, okay, genuine question. Player A gets ninth, but had a genuine shot to win the game. Player B gets third, but never had a shot. Who's better at Survivor? Ooh, the who's better at Survivor is interesting. I'll copy and paste it in the chat so you can read it.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so you just want me to rant while you're gonna go?
Well, I'd love to hear. I'll be listening, but
You're just gonna be
yeah,
listening.
I won't be long.
Great.
Yeah. I mean, you don't want to hear, do you?
All right, so yeah, I mean, I feel like my take has remained the same. I think I value how far you get in the game more so than like being voted out early on because like that's the game. Like the game is staying in it, you know? So it's like did you have bigger moves, you know? Like why are we assuming the person that was voted out earlier was like the better player or had a better shot to win the game? You know? I think like you could if you had the final tribal with the entire cast, like all 18 of you are there and then you vote for like the winner based on that, then like sure, but like that's not the game. The game is like not who has the better moves. The game is who gets to the end and who gets the vote. So I don't know. In my mind, I think he's just trying to like boost his ego of being like, hey, I'm better than these finalists. But I don't know. I feel like I've always had this stance. The stance of like, this is the game. The game is to get to the end. The game isn't like who has the bigger move. The game isn't who lied, who had the blind side. The game isn't like who had control. The game is get to the end and then get the votes.
I think that's definitely fair. I think there's nuance to it. I think there's seasons where the person who goes out ninth, it's a luck of the draw situation, and I would argue that they're a better player than the person who gets third place. Or like, yeah, sometimes it just doesn't break for you, or it depends on the situation. But the goal is to stay in the game. The goal is to get to the end and to get the votes. So it's a twofold goal. And so you might be a person who will be able to get votes. I like that. I've never thought of it. It's a twofold goal. It's to get to the end, but also to get the votes.
I've literally said that.
And so getting to
before.
the end
You're
is a skill in itself, but getting the votes is a separate thing as well. I don't know. That's interesting.
But like that's the game. The game is like how do I get votes at the end without making it so obvious that I raise my threat level and get voted out? You know what I mean? Like there's a balance. You want to be doing enough for the resume, but not enough to get voted out. And so like I don't think doing more means better game.
I don't even think it means doing more. When I think so, player B in that scenario gets third but never had a shot. I'm sorry, I'm gonna take a shot right here. That's Romeo to me. I don't think Romeo ever had he was just kind of floating along, had no agency in the game, didn't do really anything in that merge. He was just kind of there. Him compared to somebody who went out early in a game but really felt like they had a handle on the game and knew what they were doing, and they just got caught in a lie, or somebody was smart enough to get rid of them. Like I would take that person over them. I think I'd say Shaheen is a better Survivor player than Romeo, if you were to ask me. He wasn't ninth place, but in that scenario, I think that's where I would stand.
I feel like in my mind, I would section it off into tiers. I think like pre-merge, they're probably all about the same players. You know, like if you're voted out first, you're doing something wrong. Maybe even second. I don't know. Well, especially because you're on individual tribes, I suppose. But like, if you're the voted out first or second on your tribe of 6, you're probably in the same tier, right? Like, I don't really care to rank
I think
that.
it's fair.
Maybe
I think it's
like,
fair.
and then like early merge, you know, like I don't know, 9 through like 6, you know, like it's just a toss of like, where were you on the pecking order? Where were you on like the I want immunity this time but not this time, you know? But I don't know. Like I feel like there's something different about the finalists where I still would say like the finalists are probably a little bit better because I think like you look at Romeo, okay? Did he actually not have a chance to win the game? I know he got 0 votes. I know we look at the game and it's like that wasn't good. But is there a world where you could have the same game as Romeo and get a couple of votes? Is there a world where you could have the same game of Romeo and win the game? Maybe. Like maybe it's just a different final tribal performance, you know? I think
Yeah,
like
you could have the same game, but then that's a different player.
okay, sure.
You know what I mean?
I mean, yes, this is all hypothetical.
And
of,
that's
like,
and that's the answer. There's no like, oh, you always take player A or you always like it's genuinely going to be a case by case basis. There's nuance to it. I think this season's an interesting situation where I think Kyle's probably the best survivor player on this cast. But there's players that make me question like, oh, Camilla, if she just happened to be able to make fire. Like she didn't get any help. Eva got help, and yes, it's probably Eva's gameplay that like gave her somebody who was willing to help her. But in a scenario where she just happens to win in fire, because I think that is kind of a toss up a lot of times, then maybe she wins, and do we consider her the better player? So that's like the chance that's involved with Survivor. I think is my biggest question when it comes to stuff like that, because some people get screwed, some people have a tough situation. Yeah.
Yeah, I just think that there's no definition to how to win the game. You know, the game isn't I had advantages and you didn't. The game isn't I had immunity wins and you didn't, you know. Players have won on both. Players have won by not having either, you know. So like the game is getting to the end and then getting the votes. So I think if you complete half of that by getting to the end, you not getting the votes is obviously like just is not, if not more important, but there are unlimited ways to get the votes that could say very little about the game you played. You know, like if you can get to the end and convince people to vote for you, you win the game. So to me, it's like, I don't know. Like it's that final tribal is almost more valuable than leading up to it, but it's not because leading up to it got you there. I feel like I'm just talking in circles, but
yeah. Now I'm rethinking the twofold goal, because the goal is to get to the end and win, but the goal is just to win, and is getting to the end's valuable. I'm never gonna say it's not. I think when I take player A and player B, whoever they might be, if I watch player A play 100 different seasons with 100 different casts, I think it's more likely that player A wins more games than player B if they're given 100 games and 100 casts.
Is player B the one that gets to the end and then like is 0
but never
votes?
really had agency, wasn't able to find a foothold, which
see,
to be fair, maybe they do in a different season, but I don't know that in like with it being
but
blind,
like okay, so you say like
question.
you're saying agency, right? Why is that important at all? Why do you need agency?
That's important to me. I think it's important to have control in the game in some capacity.
But like people have won the game without it.
Absolutely.
So that's why I'm saying like to me that doesn't matter.
I think that is more often a valuable piece of it.
I would rather get to the end than have agency. That's my take.
That's fair. You might not win. I think it's more likely you win if you have agency, if you have control.
But not if you don't get to the end.
I'm saying if you get to the end, having
well,
agency
yeah, obviously
makes you more likely to win. Yeah.
I'm saying okay, so like player A And we're probably talking way too long. I don't care. This is
We
is fast.
definitely are, and that's the hard part. Is yes, I agree when it's just random players, whatever. But I think when
Mhm.
I look, I guess when I look at scenarios or or like scenarios that fit what I'm looking for, it's going to be correct. Yeah, yeah, I'm fine on that count. I got nothing else.
The only thing I'll
Yeah,
say,
I think that.
running the scenario 100 times,
Mhm.
I don't think player A is more likely to get to the end in those scenarios. I think player B gets to the end almost every time.
I think they get to the end, but I'm not saying get to the end. I'm saying how I think player A wins more than player B.
I think if you get to the end more than not, your chances of winning is higher.
If I don't think so.
So let's say 100 scenarios, player B gets there half the time. That's a lot of
Yep.
chances to win the game. Let's say
It is.
player A gets there 25% of the time. That's less chances to win the game.
It is.
So
If it's a player that, and maybe I'm putting this player too low, but if it's a player who's considered a GOAT on one season, I think I think it's likely that they're a GOAT on a lot of seasons.
perhaps.
Like, are you saying like maybe player B in another game is just the comp beast of the season? Maybe
No.
that's possible.
I think if you are considered a GOAT, like if we're viewing GOAT as like the lowest you could be as far as like
Mm-hmm.
no chance to win the game, I think there are some seasons where like maybe the GOAT won, but we don't talk of them as the GOAT because they won, right? I think that's
Okay.
possible. So I'm
think
just
it's
saying
possible.
like getting to the end to me is more important than having the moves that could have won you the game,
I'd rather have the moves that won me the game.
but then not get to the end.
I'd rather be Jesse than Romeo. I'd rather make the move and risk it and then know that I was going to win the game if I made it than get to. And obviously, like, yeah, I'd love the money that comes with third place. But I'd rather be that player. If those are the two that we're looking. And Jesse's not a great example because he was fourth place,
Well,
obviously.
yeah, but I think that's a
to
good
me,
example.
Jesse's like the perfect scenario of make the move at 6, you're immune at 5, and then you just are risking it and hoping that you're guaranteeing yourself the win if you get there. And I'd rather do
Uh-huh.
that than get there knowing that I don't have a shot.
I think you would. I think I actually agree with that, but I agree with that in hindsight. Knowing that like
Fair?
I'm not going to win the game either way, I would rather that option. But in the moment, I would rather be sitting at the end. Does that make sense? So like if the winner is
suppose.
still up for grabs, I would rather be player B. If I
So-
know
so-
in both scenarios I don't win, yes, I'm going to be player A.
So you're in a situation like Jesse at Final 6. You're
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, I can make this move, guarantee myself that big move, and then I have this idol at 5, and then I'm risking it at 4. Or I'm pretty well insulated with Cody and these people in this alliance. If I just ride with Cody, let him make the big move, I have a really good shot of just making it to that final 3, but nothing to claim for myself. For me, I like to think that I'm taking the risk and making the big move there every single time.
Maybe that's just it then. Maybe it's just the difference of like being risky or not, because I wouldn't have done that. I think
Really?
I mean,
okay.
I mean it again, maybe it's hindsight, but like that's why Jesse lost the game, you know?
Yeah.
So I think like if he gets to the end, yes, he's sitting there with Cody. I
also don't think he's man. If I honestly, I apologize to Romeo for him just being the example here. I don't think Jesse is viewed as a Romeo if he makes it to the final 3.
Sure.
It's hard to hard to find a crossroad where you are either a Jesse or a Romeo. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
But yeah, and like that I've said a million times, Jesse, that's to me like the perfect losing game of Survivor.
Yeah, no, I mean I don't disagree. I think he's a fantastic player. However, it was a big mistake, right? And I think like I don't think that can be
I don't know if-
overlooked. And I think
I don't know
we
if I'd consider it a mistake.
you don't think that lost him the game?
I think it did, but I don't know that he wins if he just goes with Cody to the final 3.
Sure,
If his goal
but
is
I
to win the
think,
game, I think
uh-huh.
that was his best shot.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. We'll never
That
know, and
situation,
this is
okay. So with
impossible.
that situation specifically, let me think about this.
Yeah.
Because he played a good game up to that point. He definitely
Uh-huh.
did. And if something happened where Cody went out, he could have gotten to the final 3 and still won the game. I do think that. That's that to be completely intellectually honest. I think if I am at a crossroads where it's like if I make this move and pull it off, and I can just I'm risking it at 4 that I can survive 4, I'm winning the game. My goal is to win the game, and I'd rather guarantee that chance and like risk it on fire making and one immunity challenge. Obviously, he lost both, and so that's what happened. But yeah, I think that's just the way that I'd want to play the game.
I just think, and this goes back to like, I don't think there's a
Would you
single
rather
way
win
to
the
win
game
the
or be
game.
loved by a million fans?
That's not the question here. That is not what we're
Anu, million
asking here.
fans.
Million hearts. Because like I don't pulling off that big move doesn't guarantee you jury votes, and not pulling off that big move could get you jury vote. You know what I mean? Like it's the same thing. It's like, do you play your advantage or do you prove that you didn't have to? To me, it's the same thing. It's like either way could get you jury votes. There's not a correct way. To me, if you are sitting in the final 3, you have the opportunity to sway the jury to convince your big moves or your lack of big moves on why that was a winning game. And I think that's where like
Mhm.
we've seen winners on both ends. We've seen winners that's like, hey, I didn't do anything, but guess what? I didn't have to. Okay, here's $1 million. Like that has happened, you know? So to me, that's where I go back to the agency. Like agency doesn't win you the game. Can it? Yes. Does it help you win the game? It could. But to me, like convincing the jury is what wins you the game. And sitting in the final 3 gives you a much better chance of doing that because now you have the opportunity to get the votes.
I'm going to say something, and you might just throw examples in my face. I
Yep.
don't know that there is a winner or a runner-up in Survivor history that wasn't a complete tool bag, because that's a whole thing that had, because that's the Russell clause of this statement.
Okay.
A runner-up that had clear big moves that the winner did not, and then they lost the game. Does that make sense?
What about Gabler? Does he apply here?
Gabler's an anomaly. I still don't understand how Gabler won that
Oh,
game.
there you go.
But
See,
I would
it, like
argue,
it.
Did Cassidy have clear big moves?
I
Did
think
Owen have
she.
clear big moves?
I think Cassidy had moves. Didn't she
Cassidy
vote out
had
Carla?
Cassidy had a history of being on the right side of the vote, but nobody considered her to be driving any of those votes.
Do you think people view that for Gabler? I don't think that's why they voted for Gabler.
No, but I'm just saying that runner-up did not have clear. I'm saying like somebody who can point to like, hey, this is one clear big move I
Mm-hmm.
did. I don't think Cassidy had that.
But does every winner have one clear big move?
No, I'm saying but there's no runner-up that had a clear big move. I'm saying a clear big move that you did will more often than not win you the game. I would almost say almost always, unless you're Russell, where you're just a tool bag to everybody, and Parv, I guess, just for being associated with Russell, which I think that's the one
Mm-hmm.
anomaly that stands out to me. What are other times that it feel? I don't know. I can't think of any
I mean,
specific
I
ones.
think you'd have to, in my
You'd really
mind,
have to dissect each game.
I think you'd have to remove the idea that like there's people that should have won over this person, you know? Like by that logic, then like if you're saying there's no runner up that had more agency or more control or a bigger move than like the winner, I think there again off the top of my head I'd have to look at it, but like I think that probably happens a couple times.
Charlie's a good example. I'll
That's
give
a
you
fair
one.
example.
I just thought of
Sure.
that. Charlie's
What
a fair
about
example.
Aubrey and Michelle?
Yeah, that's a fair example.
Like what was
I
Michelle's?
was gonna say.
You know?
I said. I think there's times, but I think it's more often than not that if you have specific like single moves that were big to point to, and I'd have to look at Aubrey's game again. I don't know if she had. I think she was in control for a lot of that and played really well. Be interested to see if Yeah, I think
I
I think
think-
having a
yeah.
big move bumps your chance up to, if your chance going in is 33% even across the board, you have a big move and the other people don't, I think that bumps you up to like 60% chance of winning. You don't win every time, but I think it gets you
Mhm.
significantly closer to having that happen.
I just
Assuming you can frame it in the
Yeah.
right way. So like it's so case by case. It's so specific, but I think it's really hard to be like, oh, I deserve to win. That person got out the biggest person in the game, but I deserve to win because I was nice to people, or something like that.
Yeah,
Rob's
I
probably
mean,
another
you had
example,
to
but-
frame it in the right way, but I think it's more so like I think big moves are overvalued, especially in this new era, and I think that has caused a lot of players to get voted out prematurely because of that. They get
Mhm.
big move hungry and forget that they have to actually make it to the end. It's like
Yeah.
and I get it, you have to do both simultaneously. You have to build your resume and also get to the end. But
Yeah.
I think if you're focused too much on the resume, you're not going to get to the end. And if you have to pick, I would lean more towards get to the end and have the
Mhm.
resume come second. Even if it risks not having maybe as flashy of a resume, I'll say that because I don't think there's one resume that's better than the other. I
Yeah.
just think because again, I agree. If I'm in that position, like I do want big moves. I would, if I'm a player, like I would want that. I'm not saying I would do nothing, but I don't think I would play risky enough to let that jeopardize me surviving to the end. And it sounds like you would if the odds felt favorable.
Yeah. And obviously for $1 million, that changes the equation. For third place getting whatever money they get, that might change my equation when I'm in that situation. But for me, even when I've played just with friends, which much smaller scale, for much less money, it's just for fun. I was prepping to like make some moves. You know what I mean? Like I was not scared of that. Like that's what I wanted to do. And so yeah, I'd rather give myself the best chance to win. And to me, that once again, I'd do Jesse's game 1,000,000 times over, knowing that I'll lose a good chunk, some of them. But to me, he guaranteed himself a win if he got to the final three, and guaranteed himself because I think he would have articulated his game and people have seen his game well enough that like it's adding that on. But I'd go for that than being a Philip Shepard or a Natalie whatever in Redemption Island and just being like, yeah, I'm going to ride Boston Rob's coattails. Not a great example.
Yeah,
but
I was good. I was like, wow, that's really
extreme. Yep, I'm aware.
up until that point, Jesse only had Philip Shepard gameplay. Got it. Well, I don't think we'll ever agree with this clearly because we've been talking about it for seasons.
Yeah. I mean, it's fun to talk about with you.
It's very fun. And I don't think that answered the question at all of Shaheen's question of who's the better player, right?
Yeah, you can't just blind resume that unless it corresponds to someone specific.
Oh, I can. I think Romeo's a better player than Shaheen. I'll say it.
That's crazy.
Hey. You got to get to the end, Shaheen. Sorry.
That's crazy.
Anyways. What else about the season?
I got nothing about this season.
I
I don't know where to place it in the grand scheme of the 40s.
I was gonna ask. I don't think we need to rank it right now, but I think I'm
No.
conflicted because strong winner. I would say
Very strong.
just off the cuff, probably top 3 of the new era. I'll just say it. I
think
you know,
I'd put it in the middle somewhere.
really.
No, probably towards the top.
Who would you have over? D? I know you like D's game a lot.
45.
You like Rachel's game better? I think Kyle has a better game than Rachel.
As a season, are we talking winners or season?
Winner, sorry. I should have clarified.
Winners?
Okay,
Oh,
sorry.
oh.
Yes. My point was I'm struggling because the winning game is high, probably top 3. Season overall, probably bottom 3.
I think he. Oh yeah. Oh wow. Bottom 3. I think it'd be in the middle for me.
What
Season-wise.
what seasons are
Winner.
worse in the new era?
41 and 42 are worse for me.
Okay. So there you go, bottom 3.
No, I got more. All right, maybe I don't.
43?
It's hard to remember all the seasons.
Jesse, Cody Gabler, 44 had a. Was 44 D
What
season?
was like a
No,
top
44
season
was
for 43. 44 was Jam Jam.
Yeah, that was a good season. 45, good
That
season.
was a good season.
46, great season.
Was that Kenzie?
Charlie, Q, Liz, Venus. Come on,
All right,
that's a
maybe.
good season.
Maybe.
The bottom three.
You
there we
love
go.
that. You love the chaos of that season. All
I'm
right, but
a
anyway,
chaos man.
as a winner, I think some of them are interchangeable. So I think on a given day, I would say Kyle's the best winner of the new era.
Mm-hmm.
I think I would go as low as maybe 3 or 4 on a given day with him.
Great. So
I think the other people in that conversation are D, Rachel. So maybe as low as 3. I think I'd put him as low as 3. I'm
Perfect.
processing. Get out of
So
my face.
exactly like I said, top 3 winner, bottom 3 season.
Am I allowed to process, Nathan?
You are. I like it when
Am I
you.
allowed to process?
I like when you come back to confirming my opinion.
You're a smart person. What do you want from me?
I'm not smarter. I just
No, I think
processed the
Erica's
question
better. Frick
before
you.
I
I think-
asked it. Erica's
think
a good
he's
winner. She's
6th
fine.
in the 40s.
As long as we both agree Gabler's the worst winner still, right?
Yeah. Oh, I just watched 43 with my friend Nick and Nat, and he was like, "Gabler's not that bad." I was Gabler's awful, and he was like, "No, what did he do? He did all this," and I was like, "No, he didn't. Gabler's awful." Like I just kept repeating that.
Yeah. I hate that
Gabler made a big move. He voted out Ellie. That was his big move, and that's why he won. How
Yep.
you like that example?
That's a good example. All right, let's end this. I don't know when we'll be back. Big Brother, I guess, right?
Yeah. This is what happens when we haven't talked in 3 weeks and we
I
have so
know.
much to talk through. We get all philosophical
Although we just go back to the same conversations.
because I'm going to convince you one of these days.
I'm gonna be honest. I'm not really looking forward to Big Brother as of now. Hopefully that changes. But
I mean,
It's just-
neither am I.
did you hear they're extending the episodes on I think Wednesday, 90 minutes?
Why?
I think they have some extra costumes they want to shove in. Maybe a couple goofy punishments. Maybe they'll
goofy punishments.
wake him up in the middle of the night and like have him, I don't know, do a TikTok dance or something. I think
Do
it's gonna
another
be
secret
quirky.
room. Do more puzzles like that. Mysteries that earn them things. That's interesting.
I can't wait for the theme drop. You know what?
Oh, yeah.
Last year was AI. 2 years ago was the
Yep.
multiverse. Well, oh wait, okay. I'm sorry. We had to at least like try to see what's really trendy right now. Tariffs? Is it going to be a tariff themed season?
Tariff theme.
They're super in right now.
Super in.
We got to go that line of thinking. You know what I mean? Like what's
Yeah. Oh. What could it
There's
be?
got to be something we're missing because multiverse and AI like back to back. That just felt so obvious, but maybe they like reel it back and do something again. Like what was it, Temptation or something? They did.
An Israel versus Palestine theme.
Oh, we're getting into it now. Let's go, Tony. We're past the hour 18 mark. We're getting they split off into 2 teams and oh man.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll throw out some ideas. If you guys got any ideas of what the theme of Big Brother is this year, we'll hear you. out.
WNBA theme.
Oh,
hot in the streets.
yeah, really is. All right. For more episodes, visit NakiMoBursville.com. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter, TikTok, YouTube at NGAPPod. That's at NGAPPod. I'm Nathan. This is Tony, and we'll see you for Big Brother.
Ooh, 15 seasons, 2 pals, 1 podcast.